So I'm going to start off my homily by rereading a section from page 6. Rise up and stand upright, you who once were brought low. You that were in silence speak, for your mouth has been opened. You that were despised from henceforth be lifted up, for your righteousness has been lifted up. For the right hand of the Godhead is with you, and the Godhead will be your helper, and peace was prepared for you before the war that may come unto you. And I read that because the thing about the story of Sophia is that it's both her story and it's also our story. And so that piece that I just read, it can be applied both to us as people, internally, externally, wherever. It can also be applied to the story of Sophia herself. And the lesson, the gospel, are basically the low and the high points of her story. Granted, it's from two different mythologies, but it still works. And the thing about it is, I've mentioned this a few times before, but the lesson in the gospel today it perfectly demonstrates what I've mentioned before about how Sophia isn't just the goddess of wisdom, she's the goddess of the entire spectrum of wisdom, which I have a personal opinion is why none of the archons or the demiurge have, none of them are called ignorance, because she is all of wisdom, from all of it to well, you read the lesson. And the thing is that, well, there's this saying, and I forget who says it, that even a camera has a point of view. And if you look at the lesson, there's a couple different ways of looking at what happened. Because some people could say the error wasn't her creating the demiurge in the first place. You could say the error was in her freaking out and hiding it from everybody. You could say the error started when she decided to do this by herself. There's a lot of different ways you can look at it. There's also which is my favorite, which is that she thinks she made an error, but she didn't really, because, God the Unknown Father, even though she was trying to hide things, he knew what was going on. And I had this vision of the Gnostic creation story once. I don't talk about it much because I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I had a vision. But basically, it amounts to the light wanted to experience itself. So it created a prism and went through it, and the white light that came out of it is what we call God the Unknown Father. And out of that comes all these other colors, which is other gods, and then that filters out into other beings, and we get to physical reality. And, basically, as the light gets dimmer, different things appear and all of that stuff. And the thing about that vision is that even in the trail ends of the light, way down here, it's still light, even though we might classify it as mostly darkness, there's still light there. And I think a lot of the Gospels and a lot of the Gnostic scriptures actually kind of get at this point in different ways. Because, there's some mythologies where, at the end, the archons will be redeemed, or, there's also this whole thing where, in the Secret Book of John, the archons are trying to create a human, and they don't really understand that they need something more than just the physical parts, and Sophia breathes a little bit of life into their creation. It becomes greater than the sum of the parts, and they freak out and this whole thing. But there's this there's these parallels, and I mean even in the canonical Gospels, I forget where this is, but it talks about faith as small as a grain of mustard seed can move mountains. Mustard seeds are like the size of pollen, but tiny. And so like however you look at this, there's always more than one way to look at it. Because like, yeah, you could see something as mostly darkness, but you could also see it as having some light in it at the same time. And sometimes we're doing that to ourselves. Especially, you know, like as an example, you know, you see somebody doing something, and so you compare what they're doing to you, but you have all your thoughts, and so you're like, I can't measure up to that because you have all your thoughts, but you don't know their thoughts, and so your perspective is different than perhaps what's going on, but it's also different than whatever point of view they have of whatever is going on. Like, it's just, you know, like I said, even a camera has a point of view. And so anytime you find yourself getting off balance or freaking out about something, if you can find a way to sort of bring it back in and go, how can I look at this differently? You know, even if it's just like, you know, stop and like take deep breaths for a minute. Because sometimes if you can get your physical body to do stuff, your brain will follow. Not always, but sometimes it helps. And like with Sophia, she thought she fucked up. I don't think she actually did, but you could argue it either way. Like, we could probably have a debate about this for hours if we really wanted to. Like, and I'm sure plenty of intellectuals have, because why not? But the point is, there's light in everything that exists because it exists. Even if it's not very much, and even if you can't see it, it's still in there, including yourselves. And I'm saying that as much of myself as the rest of y'all. So yeah. If nothing else, you can always think of that scene from, I'm forgetting the name now, with Robin Williams, where he has all the students stand on their desks so they can get a different point of view of stuff.
Dead Poet Society.
Yes, it's a great movie. You can always think of that scene and go, you know, how can I think this differently? What out of the box thing, or even in the box thing, have I not tried or done with it? And whatever it's going to be different for whatever situation you are in. But again, there's always a million ways of looking at things if you can stop yourself from figuring out long enough to do it. So with that, go in peace, and may the lady walk with you.